we're going to tackle the 8 dynamics of Scientology.
First off, the word dynamic in this sense, or the dynamics, is just a made-up word in Scientology. It doesn't have anything to do with engineering or physics or anything like where you would use the word dynamics in a scientific sense. Hubbard using it as in a sense of a force or an energy or a movement in a particular direction. That's kind of the connotation or the idea of a dynamic. It is a way in which a spiritual entity, or a thetan in Scientology, that's the word they use, right?
Yes.
The way that a thetan moves through life. It's a way that a thetan considers or categorizes the actions and activities of life is through these artificial categories called the dynamics. And,
Yes.
and there are 8 of these categories. And basically, Hubbard said, originally there were 4. And then it expanded in Scientology to 8. When Hubbard published the book Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health in 1950, it was 4 dynamics.
Yes.
So I think it took 2 years or so, and then it became 8. It's basically a matter of compartmentalizing life.
As far as I can tell, there's not really a lot of abuses happening when it comes to the 8 dynamics, but I think if we delve deep into it, maybe there will be something that we can pick up.
And it is used absolutely in very abusive ways. From yourself, if you imagine this, or if you can kind of get the image of concentric circles, you'll have the right idea of what the dynamics represent. With yourself smack in the middle of these concentric circles, there's 8 of them. You're in the middle. You exist as yourself going through life. That is you as yourself.
Yes.
The idea is that is the first dynamic. The first point of entry to survival is you surviving as you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Your identity, your personality, your mind, your intimate personal possessions, your body, all of these things would be encapsulated by what we call the first dynamic. So if I was saying that I was going out and taking a walk to clear my head or calm down or just take in the sights, that would be a first dynamic activity.
Yes.
It's me, myself, doing something for me, myself. I'm not involving anybody else, really.
With regards to the first dynamic, I was listening to Scientology Fair Game, and they were talking about being selfish in Scientology.
Yep.
Can we talk about being selfish in Scientology and what that means and how it relates to the first dynamic?
Yeah, absolutely. Selfishness in Scientology would be framed as or talked about as being 1D oriented. First dynamic, 1D, right?
Yes.
The dynamic is 2D. This is how they refer to these things. They'll say, "Oh, he's so 1D," or "He's so 1D oriented," or he's just all about his first dynamic.
Yes.
This is how you might say that in Scientologies.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Same concept: selfish, self-centered, egotistical. Very 1D oriented, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of how it's talked about or thought about, at least at that level, on that sense.
Yes, but so being selfish in Scientology is not a good thing.
Well, if it's at the expense of Scientology, it's not. I mean,
Yes.
ultimately, Scientology's entire goal and purpose is extremely self-centered and egotistical and
Yes.
selfish. But that's not how they think of themselves or see
Yes.
themselves, even though that, objectively speaking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in essence, a woman having a baby, you're not being on post, you're daydreaming, you're not, you're not reaching your goals, you're not doing the work properly, is in Scientology's idea of you being selfish and you're not with the team.
Yes, that's right. And
Okay.
in fact, that's one of the ways that this gets corrupted, right? Because we talked about how does this get abusive? Well, it gets abusive when you start knocking the priorities around amongst different dynamics.
If you take Scientology as an entity, one entity, are they not breaking the rules of the 8 dynamics and only thinking of themselves?
See, the thing is, at the end of the day, that doesn't really work out very practically,
Okay.
right? Because none of us live in a vacuum, so it doesn't really work out that we, don't care about anybody else but ourselves, kind of thing. Because you always have to at least reach out a little bit to communicate to other people. But I will say, of course, that Scientology is very much about its own importance.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And they have a priority problem. They have a perspective problem.
In the essence of the 8 dynamics, and the first dynamic being self.
Yeah.
And being selfish is bad in Scientology. Them just thinking about themselves as an entity and not thinking about the rest of the dynamics is for me, it feels like they're breaking their own rule.
They are. And let's be clear that because I realize as I'm sitting here laying this out that this could be easily misunderstood. So the first dynamic that we talked about or defined is an individual person. It's an individual thetan. It's not a group, right?
Okay.
The third dynamic is groups.
Yes.
So Scientology, the Church of Scientology, is a third dynamic. It's not a first dynamic. The only thing that can have and is, manifest across dynamics is a spiritual entity, not a corporation or a church or a group or an organization. This is all from the point of view of an individual.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So the center of the concentric circles is always a person.